everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So this is going to be a different type of video for me as far as the live stream goes. A buddy of mine is not doing well. He's got acute pancreatitis, and he's in a lot of pain and suffering, and he's up at Portland right now, and they're going to do some surgery and, get him all taken care of, but his family could really use some support. So I'm going to do this video, do some live Q&A, just randomly ask, questions, whatever you want. I'll answer them to the best I can. And all the money that is made from the ad revenue of this video, I'm going to match it, and I'm going to send it to him. There's a GoFundMe page that there's a link down in the description. If you wanted to help by supporting, the family, it would be greatly appreciated. They have met their goal, but I don't care. They could use everything that they can, all the help that they can get. And so that's what the point of this video is today. But I would just love to be able to just answer whatever random questions you may have about the economy or whatever it is you want to talk about. And like I said, all the money that's made from this, I'm going to donate to my buddy Frank. I'm going to match every dollar that is made in ad revenue and send that to him. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started in here. Hey Brody, what's happening, man? Great to see you up in here. We got 4 likes already, so hit the like button too. That's going to help the algorithm go spread the video around a little bit more. What's up, car man? All right, post poop Zoomies. I love the name, man. That's so funny. Hey, all nighter, what's happening? Howdy, folks. Howdy, Simon. Yeah, so what do you guys want to talk about? I mean, do you want to continue talking about this, average inflation rate that nobody really seems to understand at all? Even though I've come up with all this, compiled all kinds of documents and data from the Federal Reserve itself, and still yet people are just denying that I have, no clue or whatever. It's just great. Anyway. Sad to hear about your friend. Yeah, it is, man. It is sad to hear about, my buddy. But like I said, he's up at the hospital, so they're going to get him taken care of. I'm sure everything is going to be fine. But like I said, the family, his wife has to drive up there, pay for hotel rooms, meals. I mean, they're pretty close. I grew up with Frank. I mean, we were in high school together. He was a few years ahead of me. His kid is in the same class with Freddie, and we even went trick-or-treating together. His kid, I took him and Freddie trick-or-treating this last Halloween. So, okay, question I have for you is, how can you say demand for houses is strong and supply is low if the banks are always being bailed out on bad home loans? To me, that's not a free market. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So where is the information that you're talking about as far as these banks always getting bailed out? So I know the banks do get bailed out, and I understand a lot of the programs, like the bank term funding programs and the discount windows and different places where they can go and get funding. But as far as bailed out on a continuous basis, like every single week of the day or every week of month, day, whatever, where's that information? Because I don't know of that one. Maybe I'm just missing it. So I got a thought on the 2% over time. Okay, what's your thought? Who is that? 26 Gunter. If you want to go back, read Fed speeches. Where should I start? Okay, hey, that's a good one. Thanks for asking that, Dylan. So to me, I would start back. There's a few Fed speeches that I think are very important to internalize. There's one, I don't remember the title of it, but I'll put a link. Actually, that's a good one. I will do a video talking about all the different Fed speeches that I think people should read. That's actually really good, Dylan. Thank you. Let me write that down, because I'll forget if I don't put it down here. All right, compile. But I would start with Ben Bernanke's speech from 2002, and if you just put in deflation and how to prevent it, and Ben Bernanke speech 2002, it'll pop up right away because it's a very popular speech. That's where the gold machine, the idea of the credible threats, the quantitative easing, all this stuff, that is an excellent speech. And so I would start there with that one. If you wanted to read one tonight, it would be that one. Sorry. Cool. But that's the one I was talking about. Okay. Hey, just tuned in. What do you need help with? Okay, thank you for asking, Mark. My buddy Frank is not doing well. He's suffering from an acute pancreatitis. He's in a lot of pain. He's up at the up in Portland right now, so he's going to get taken care of. You know, they're going to do the surgery and you know and get him all fixed up. I'm sure everything is going to be fine there. But his family could really use some support. There's a GoFundMe page. I linked it down in the description of this video. They've met their goal, but it doesn't matter. They still need all the support that they can get. She's up there, you know, traveling up there, staying at hotels, paying for meals, you know, all this stuff. And she's trying to continue to go to work too. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to do, what I'm going to do is take the ad revenue from this video that happens over the next, hold on here, guys, my phone's not charging right. I don't want it to end too quickly. All right. Anyway, I'm going to take all the ad revenue from this video and I'm going to match it and send it on to them. So anyway, all the support that they can get. Thanks for the donations, everyone. Yeah, thank you all, Nutter. I really help. I really appreciate that. And what does it say? I hope your buddy gets better. Yeah, I'm sure he will. Like, I mean, you know, he's in good hands up there. He's like, you know, he's at a decent hospital. You know, he had some issues going on, but you know, they're gonna get him all fixed up. And then, but like I said, I mean, his wife's still trying to work, and you know, it's not like, you know, it ain't easy out there. And trying to show up, you know, go up to Portland, which is 2 hours away from here, and pay for hotels and meals and stuff. It's difficult. So, I mean, I think. FOS, buddy. Okay, the housing market is just unsustainable. Yeah, and you know, well, this is the thing. Like, it's not. There was a time in this country where owning a home was a realistic thing. Like, it was something that anybody could have done, and all you had to do was just, you know, work hard and, you know, go to your job and, you know, build a house or buy one or whatever. But it wasn't like it was an impossible thing, right? It's getting to the point where it's going to be an impossible thing. And it's not because of any kind of political decisions that are taking place out there. It's the Cantillon effect that separates the rich from the poor. Rich people live in homes. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I don't want to feel like I'm bragging or something because I have a house. It took me a lot to get here, and I feel quite fortunate that I was able to, you know, have a YouTube channel that was able to, you know, provide me with an abundance that I was able to actually do this for my family. But it's not easy, right? It's not easy to do this. And to think that like everybody can have a shot at that. Yeah, if you could build your own, if you could go out there and put it together with your own hands, then maybe you might have a shot at it, but not everybody's going to. And so it's just better to understand why it is that this situation has taken place. You know, right here, this book right here, if you start at this is like the beginning of it all, right? If you could understand how it functioned in the earliest days. And thank you for the $10 super chat. I'll go and check that out. But if you study Cantillon's essay, you know, and I can't get through it. I've tried Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. I would love to read that book. But you start from the earliest days. You get the most basic understandings of how the economy is operating. You understand Gresham's law. You understand things that are forcing the money to go in a particular direction and why this takes place. And if you understand it from the root, right, from the essence of it, not from like the theories of like what people say should or shouldn't be happening, that's inconsequential. The way it should or shouldn't be, it's just the way it is, yo, right? I mean, straight up, and there's no changing it. And this is going to be like how most people like will function is through the way it should be, or the problems, or, you know, whatever, instead of just looking at it for the real reasons that it's taken place. And that if you go and look at some of the economic forces out there that separate the rich from the poor, you can see that it's quite clear what is happening out here. You know, I mean, when we were a very productive nation, when we were producing the world's greatest stuff and we were sending it all over the world, and the world was like, wow, look at these wonderful products. Here's all this money. You get to live in abundance because of that. And everybody here was just like, wow, look at us. We're the greatest nation in the world with the highest standard of living. And we have one income for the entire family. Yeah. All right. Well, those days are gone. Yeah. You continue on injecting new money into the system, and what you're going to have is a separation between or just have the inequality grow. Like, that's the way to look at it, right? Because it's not like our standard of living for most people is that bad, right? I mean, you think about it, there's a lot of conveniences out there, including like nowadays where you have like ride share and delivery and all kinds of stuff that's happening out there. It doesn't, it's not like, the days of trying to provide for yourself. It's almost like this communal thing that's starting to take place with, the share, like, ride share and just all the stuff. It's not like the conditions of life is just not ever going to go back to that. Thank you for the $10 super chat and listening to me babble on about mindless stuff. Okay, here we go. Mark, thank you so much for the $10. This is for you, buddy. Thank you. I'm going to match that $10 and I'm going to send that to him. Whatever this video makes over the next 48 hours, and unless it takes off, if it takes off for the next week, then fine, over the next week. But whatever it does, I'm going to match and I'm going to send it to him. So yeah, everything you send in super chats, it's all going to go to my buddy. All right, are you ready to repent and accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior? It's a good question. I love when people talk about it's hard lesson to learn. That's just, where are my glasses? Here we go. Ha! All right. It's a hard lesson to learn. It works the way it does. It just does, Built my house, one of the most challenging things I've ever done. Great to have no mortgage. Yeah, good for you, Rick. All right, Cantion's essay, Gresham's Law, Triffin's Dilemma, the bullwhip effect. Yep, absolutely. I understand those well. What should I learn next? Wow. All right, yeah, if you understand most of those pretty well, then what I would do is I would learn the monetary strategy of the Federal Reserve. It sounds like you're catching on pretty quick, Dylan. So I would study the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve. And so if you start with, like I said, Ben Bernanke's speech, and then start moving into John Williams' speech, and I'm going to put this all together. So I'll probably do this in a video for you tomorrow. Because I think this is a great idea. And I will put a list together of all the different speeches that I feel that if you kind of read them in order, you can probably pinpoint out a lot of how the monetary policy strategy is working. And, be able to internalize that so that when you're actually reading articles and you're listening to, some of the statements and stuff that's happening out there, you're going to have a much different view of it. You're going to be like, well, you're not thinking of like the strategy or whatever, conditions or economic theory or whatever that's happening there. Housing is crazy, yet I can buy a cash flowing investment property with $0. Come on, too few are willing to educate themselves when there's entertainment on TV. All-Nighter is impressive. You know that? All-Nighter is impressive. That dude does stuff, man. And it's like, I thought like I knew how to like make connections with people, just through YouTube. It was like, just kind of almost like, just happened. All-Nighter knows how to connect with people. He knows how to network, and that guy is doing it. Like, you can see his motivation and his chase for excellence. You should follow his channel. It's like, all right, home sales, what does it say? Home sales are lots of cash buyers, no payment, don't care about the interest rates. That's right, Paul. I mean, that's 30, it's a growing number of people. What does that also say? Like, you have to have the money in order to buy one of these expensive houses. It's happening in cash. Who's buying houses? Rich, elite people, right? That's who's buying houses. And probably, whatever investment groups or whatever. But that's not a surprise. That's the inequality growing due to the new money coming into the system. And it's going to continue. Been there, done that. Detective party on. All right. I invented the house car, or if you prefer the car house, you can live inside it and also travel anytime. Yeah. Ready to go, Magic Man. All right. How's property going, All-Nighter? Yes, Bittner, but no, not in Gary so much as the surroundings. Simon, okay. One of my favorite quotes has become, if you get the timing wrong, you're wrong. Consensus says the Fed will cut this year. Is your bias case they won't until when? Okay, well, that's okay, so to understand the credible threat theory well, they can't just call wolf, right? So at some point they are going to have to cut if they want to continue using the credible threat theory, right? If they want to use that credible threat. And right now you can totally see it working. Like markets are already reacting to the fact that they are planning on cutting rates into the future, and this is what everybody is saying. But it's not a necessity. The things can change. The outlook or the outcome of the events, like whatever happens to inflation going into the future, might dictate where it is that they actually go with their interest rates. Right? That's really what it comes down to. And if it continues in the fashion it is today, and it maintains this kind of like, outcome, or at least the future idea of this is going to be the outcome of it, then I would imagine that they would cut, right? Because this is the same view that is going to be the outcome coming into the future. But what if the outcome changes, right? What if we get there and we all of a sudden realize that inflation is flaring back up, and that they, and the narrative goes out there that they've lost control, right? Or something of that nature. If that happens in the next couple of months or 3 months, right, then they're going to change their view, and they're going to change the way they, are going to adjust their monetary policy. And it's going to be done with new information. And so this is the point about it is that I can't call out where the Fed's going to go with their interest rates, because I don't know what it is that they plan on doing at the end of the year when they do a review of their monetary policy. See, it's not easy to predict where it is that the Fed is going to go, right? What they're like, I didn't think that they were going to get, here's one. I didn't think that they were going to get interest rates, their Fed funds rate above 2.5%. Like when I was asked, what is it? I said 2.5%. I got it wrong, right? Now, something that I wasn't really thinking about when I was answering that question is where the neutral interest rate was going to be. See, if the neutral interest rate is at 0 or close to 0, then they're not going to have an easy time getting the Fed funds rate far enough above the neutral interest rate in order to, like, well, let me see if I'm saying this right. In order to continue on having economic growth. Like if they shot their Fed funds rate up to 5.5% and the neutral interest rate was at 0, we would be seeing some serious consequences because of that, right? But now what I was thinking is how far above the neutral interest rate they can get. And since they're at 0, they can only get it to 2.5%. What I should have answered that question is that they won't be able to get it much more than 2.5% above the neutral interest rate. And since we don't know where the neutral interest rate is going to be, it's going to rise at some point going into the future. And so this is really how I messed it up, because I didn't think about the neutral interest rate moving. I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't think about it moving up, like with inflation. It totally makes sense now that I say it out loud, but back then I didn't really think about it, I guess. And so I figured the neutral interest rate in my mind was going to be somewhere around 0 to, or low, and that they wouldn't be able to raise the Fed funds rate that much. So now if you get the Fed funds rate up to 5.5% and then the neutral interest rate continues to rise, like a lot of people saying that it's not moving, other people saying that it's at 3.5%. Well, if that makes a lot of sense to me, because now if you think about the neutral interest rate, which is the rate that is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy, the Fed would be neutral, right? So if they're above the neutral rate, they're restrictive. But if that neutral rate is ever getting closer to the Fed funds rate, well, then that becomes less restrictive on the economy. And then you have good times starting to take place out there. And people go wonder why it is that the markets are doing so well and why all the housing's doing well and stuff like that. And people's future inflation expectation has raised the neutral interest rate. And since the Fed is standing still, the neutral interest rate now gets ever closer to it, making it less restrictive on the economy. Did I say all that right? So I don't know where the Fed funds rate are going to be. I think probably they would cut it at some point just to make sure that they keep that credible threat going. But I don't think it's going to be a significant cut. And really, I think that would really depend on the neutral interest rate rising even more, because if it moves up ever closer to the Fed funds rate, then they don't have to cut at all. In fact, it would probably start creating inflationary scenarios, or at least the anticipation of an inflationary scenario. And then the Fed would be like, hey, we don't have to cut, right? And then in that sense, then people would start flipping out altogether, and it would have have its own consequences from it. So, all right, moving on. Where are my glasses? Thank you all for joining the live stream today. For those of you who have just joined in, please hit that like button. We are doing a live stream today to donate all the money that is coming from ad revenue and super chats, and there is a link down in the description. I'm going to match all the ad revenue that this video makes, and including the super chats, and I'm going to send it to my buddy Frank, who is suffering with an acute pancreatitis. He's up in Portland right now, getting this. I don't know if he's actually in surgery right now or getting prepared for it, but they're up there doing that. His wife could really use some support. She's still trying to show up for work and go up there and visit him and stay in hotels and meals and stuff like that. So they could use all the help they can get. The GoFundMe has definitely reached its goal, but it doesn't matter. They could still use as much as they can get. So everybody is squatting. The supply chain is being manipulated, and supply and demand can't be met properly. Supply chain is being manipulated and supply demand can't be met properly. I agree, Bill. I really do, and I don't think it's necessarily in the manipulation part of things, because I think that was more when they were shutting everything down and telling people that they can't travel and they can't do their thing. That was a huge manipulation tactic right there. To like, here's the thing. Everybody kind of volunteered to do that. Now, I know in like some countries that they were arresting people or doing some other stuff, but here in the United States, at least from my understanding of the Constitution and my behavior that I conducted myself with, I did not change anything about the way I was doing anything at all. Like literally nothing. The only thing I was not allowed, well, I'm not going to talk about that. It was a personal thing that I had a group of people who chose to exclude me out because I wasn't vaccinated, right? And they said, go and do that, and then you can join us. And I'm like, you know what? Never mind. You know, I'm not into it. So, you know, that was my own personal choice on that. But outside of that, there was nothing. I traveled everywhere I wanted to go. I went to the stores. I went to work. I did all the stuff. It was everybody else who were voluntarily shutting their stuff down and doing all that other things that I was just like, well, okay, if that's what you're going to do, you know. I mean, I put on a mask. If I was on private property, I went into a store, they said you had to wear a mask. Okay, well, I mean, I'm standing on private property. It's not up to me to make a decision on what it is that I can do on their property, right? I mean, it's their decision on what I can do on their property. It's my decision to do what I want to do out on the street. But when I'm on their property, I have to respect their rules, right? That's why private property, same thing with my private property. I would expect people to respect me in my private property, right? And so like going into a store and for them to tell me to put a mask on, yeah, if I want to be in the store, then that's what I'm gonna have to do. I don't like it. I didn't want to do it. And I didn't find it disrespectful that they made me do it either, right? I mean, it wasn't against my constitutional rights. I didn't have to go in there, right? I didn't have to be on their private property. They didn't have to sell me anything. It's like none of that is a have to. There is no constitutional violation in any of that stuff. It felt like it, but it wasn't. Everybody squatting. Okay, where's the questions? Let's answer some questions. George Bush, Bill Clinton bailed out banks. Yeah, that was a long time ago. All right. 100%. Why does unemployment affect inflation less than it used to? Oh, that's a really good question. Let's see. That is a really good question on why that is, because if you understand the Phillips curve, and it's really been abandoned, I think it actually came to an end when the quantitative easing started to kick in and the abundance of money was out there. See, it's a really weird kind of chain of events that starts to take place that causes unemployment to rise and fall when the Federal Reserve adjusts their monetary policy. So ultimately, when they lower interest rate, what ends up happening is business out there starts to invest, right? People borrow money and start expanding their operations. This expansion of operations eventually leads into the rise of employment, right? People were getting hired to do this new business that has taken place. As these people get these jobs, they start to consume, because now all of a sudden they have more money coming in, and these new money essentially coming to the people start to consume. As they consume, that's what starts driving up the inflation. So inflation is caused when the consumption happens at all channels. That's important to remember. This is how Cantillon described it. And it's important because it's not just about the money printer. If it was just about the money printer, then the expansion of the balance sheet from quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4 would have totally, blown hyperinflation and into existence. But it didn't happen, right? So what ends up happening when you raise the employment, when more people are working, more people are now have the money, they can now consume. As they're consuming, that starts to cause the supply-demand imbalances to occur, right? So if you have more demand and it's trying to deal with the current supply, then you start having the inflationary scenarios start to take place. Well, this is where the Federal Reserve would then do the opposite. If you get the inflation, too many jobs, too many people working out there, and literally it would be too many, right? Then what they do is raise the interest rates, make business more restricted, and then they would not be able to hire as many people, and then the layoffs would begin, and then next thing you know, you would find that less consumption was happening there, and supply would build, and then the deflationary scenarios would start to occur. So that's really how the employment part of it worked. But now since you have the quantitative easing that has taken place, it's really given these corporations, I guess, a different position in which they can expand or why they would expand. And if let me see if I can really answer that. I should probably roll that one over so I could get a better, give you a better reason for that. But now, when you think about where current business is, how much demand for employment there is, there's still a demand, a low unemployment going on out there. And so the idea that to raise the unemployment, right? This is going to become very difficult. And the idea that there is less people working in the older age, right? So they're starting to fade off, whether they're retiring or just simply dying away. There's less people coming in, although we just heard about all this immigration and stuff like that, but there's less people coming in to fulfill that labor. And although everybody talks about AI, it's not really there taking over these jobs as of yet. And so when we think about the situation in which that the amount of people who are actually coming into the workforce is actually kind of plateaued out and not really increasing that much, and in some cases is probably actually fading away in a lot of ways when you think about the older population dying off, the ability to bring in new people in to replace the old people is it's flat, right? And so when any kind of business expands, then all of a sudden the demand for employment starts to rise. And this is really where the condition has now met itself. So whether or not it was a condition of economic things that the Fed did, like the monetary policy, whether it was through the actions of that, or if this is just the natural progression into what would eventually be the bigger separation, I don't know, right? This is a new era that we're really in, and it's quite surprising to see it. The Phillips curve and how it doesn't operate anymore when it comes to the Federal Reserve, it really leads me to believe is okay, so how is it that you can create the inflation, but how do you now create the deflationary scenario if you can't really get the unemployment to rise very much? Right? So this is a new question. Thanks for letting me think out loud on that. I kind of babbled a little bit, but really I should probably roll that one over and ask Google a few questions on that. Never put a mask on ever. Private property demands were meet with no problem. Property demands were met no problem as I turned and left anyone demanded. It was all choice. That's right. It was all choice. And I had to tell people I worked in a store where I wanted to be employed, right? I wanted a job. I didn't want to wear the mask, but I'm on private property and I'm working for somebody else, trading my time for their dollars. So I had to do it. I had no other choice. So I put the damn mask on. Now, other people who were going to come in and argue with me about it, I would literally look at them right in the eye and say, I totally agree with you, bro, but you know what? I like feeding my family, so I'm not going to argue with you on this. I'm not selling you any items. You can step outside the door and I'll, go and hand you your items and take your money from there. That's what I did, and I didn't want to be a jerk about it, but it's what it comes down to. I'm not changing anything about the rules of this store so that I can you know, comfort this person on the other side. I have to follow him because I'm trying to feed my family, right? Period. End of story. I'm not arguing, you know? And I didn't get anybody arguing with me. And I would be like, go sit in your car, man. I'll go get everywhere you need, man. I'll go bring it out to you, you know? And some people did. And so I did. I ran all over the store and go get all their hardware or whatever. All right. I love the channel, man. Have you ever heard of the Australian economist Phil Anderson? Your views line with his a bunch. I haven't, but I should check it out. Phil Anderson. Thanks for the super chat. Somebody just sent me that. Let me go look. Hey, thank you, Mark Egner. Thank you very much for the $9.99, man. So for those of you who are joined into the channel, if you haven't heard yet, my buddy Frank is up at the hospital. He's suffering from an acute pancreatitis. He's got a GoFundMe page down in the description. It's met its goal, but I don't, his family, they still need this as much support as they can get. She's traveling up there, trying to stay in hotel rooms and paying for meals and stuff like that. So all the money that is made here on this video from the ad revenue and super chats that are coming in, I'm going to match that and send it up to them over the next, probably in the next 48 hours. If the channel really, or if the video really takes off, then I'll, whatever it does, then I'll match that and send it up to them. All right, just doing following orders. So you were worth not wearing the mask, so you were an enforcer. That must have sucked. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not agreeing with it and then telling them, like, but right? I didn't have to work there. I volunteered to work there. That's what it came down to, right? And I wanted to. I wanted to work there. I didn't want to wear the mask. I said no to a lot of stuff, right? Some personal things, like I wasn't, I like, I mean, I don't want to talk business of it, but I mean, I was asked to get vaccinated and I said no, right? I'm not going to do it. And I didn't do it, and never will I do it. I haven't done, to be honest with you guys, I'm going to tell you straight up, I haven't had a vaccination since I was like, I don't know, sometime in my youth. Like, I gave that up a long time ago. My parents couldn't even understand why. Like, I don't know what it was that was in me that said, this isn't right. I don't agree with this, right? I'm not going down to get the flu shot. I'm not doing any of that stuff. And like, literally, I had to tell my parents, no, I'm not doing it, and they at times tried to convince me, and I was too adamant. I'm like, and so they didn't make me do it, and I never have, ever. Good for you, Carman. You passed the IQ test. You rock. Thanks. Well, all right. Fed wants mild inflation. No, yeah. I mean, Fed. Where the 2% inflation thing came from, I don't know. What I think the Federal Reserve truly wants to do, if there was ever like a want from everything that I can kind of gather from it, is what they want to do is be able to have the economy do somewhat of a mild growth, right? Small, like people say, why can't we just be on this steady thing? Like, it doesn't work like that, right? I mean, human reactions and stuff like that are gonna mess with it. So what the Fed wants and what they are going to get are two very different things. They have to have come to the conclusion after 100 years that there is no way that they can do this, right? That they can make it be like this even plane where everybody can have this nice, steady, consistent expectation of growth. Like, there's no way that they can make that happen ever, right? They've tried a zillion different ways. So it's more about the idea of attempting to do that. And by attempting to do that, that means they have to adjust their monetary policies. If they run out of the ability to adjust their monetary policy by running into like the lower bound and stuff like that, then they have to figure out a way in order to be able to adjust monetary policy again. And typically using interest rates would be that monetary policy. But if you run into the lower bound of zero, you're done. If you have inflation for a consistent amount of time that is elevated, then you can get your monetary policy back. You can get that, or the ammo, right? The inflation can get the ability to then bring interest rates up high enough that you can then now mess with them in order to keep the economy on a stable basis. Like all this idea, like I can't fall in. I used to. I mean, totally. I used to fall into the idea that the Fed was this evil organization meant to destroy us, right? And take everything from us and suck all our talents and our efforts and all our stuff and just take it all from us, right? They were designed to do that. And if you kind of think about it in a way, it does, right? It totally does that. And people have figured out how it is that they can work that system to benefit them. I'm not denying that at all. What I have an issue that I begin to is that you can figure that stuff out and fight against it, right? You can create a life for yourself that is, beyond the hopelessness that a lot of people are saying is coming, right? It's not like that at all. I mean, if you can, money flies everywhere. This is what drives me crazy about it. It just flies everywhere, and I'm like, even have a hard time trying to understand how this works. It's just like, how many people ask me, it was just like, you don't have an Amazon affiliate, bro? Like, why in the world? You got 100,000 subscribers. Why wouldn't you have an Amazon affiliate thing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, I see other people were doing it, and I don't know, right? I mean, this is literally like I don't know why I was doing this. So I went and set up the Amazon affiliate. It's just that easy, right? A few dollars start coming in. It's everywhere, right? All you have to do is just go and work for it and look for it, try for it, and believe that it's actually there. Right? If you believe that it's not there, and you believe that it's hard, and you believe that that it's difficult to acquire, and that life is hard, then that's exactly what the universe is going to deliver to you, because you're going to condition yourself to with those expectations, and that's how the energy works. If you put that out there, that's what you're going to get back. But if you start chasing excellence, you're making connections, you're trying to do business. If you're following with guys like Old Nighter and what he's doing, that dude's chasing excellence, right? If you start doing that, magical things start happening in your life. And I know, because it happens to me, and it's not like I'm trying to be some kind of crystal gripping hippie weirdo saying, man, you got to jive with the universe and stuff. It's not like that at all, man. It's literally the energy that you emit out there has a returning effect on it. And so it takes time. Most people think, I was really cool for a week. I don't understand how come nothing happened to me. I was just like, no, you got to be cool for a year, right? It takes time to gather the universe has to go out there and reach that stuff and grab it and bring it to you, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. All right, moving on. Question, here we go. Thanks, Brody. All right, why did the Fed need or feel they needed the excuse of unusual and exigent circumstances? Oh, that's a good question. Of the pandemic to inject the money into the economy the way they did. Okay, so now here's the problem with the Federal Reserve is that they are incredibly limited in a lot of ways that they can bring money into the system. Like, they can't go directly to the Treasury and say, here's a bunch of printed money, let me buy some treasuries from you. They can't do that. They have to go to the open market. They have to go to the big banks out there who are the primary dealers who go to auction, buy the treasuries, and then they can sell them to the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve is incredibly limited on what it is that they can do to stimulate the economy. Now, typically, stimulating the economy was really easy for them by just lowering interest rates, because that lowering of interest rates would get the overnight lending rate at the big banks to start lowering their interest rates. And then in turn, that would start bleeding into the rest of the economy. So the Federal Reserve had pretty easy task, considering that they had their ammo back. Now, when it comes to the pandemic, they were at the lower bound of zero, right? And the dropping of interest rates from 2.5% was not enough to stimulate the economy, right? So they dropped interest rates to zero, and nothing was going to happen. Some people might take out loans and, kind of do the thing. And if you go and look at the housing market, there was plenty of money going into that. But it wasn't enough to stimulate the economy in the fashion that people would start consuming from all channels in that sense, right? So what was going to happen if they did not do the way they did with the pandemic as far as the recession goes, is that when the interest rates went to zero and it wasn't enough to stimulate the economy, then what was going to end up happening is that the funding going to households and businesses was going to start to diminish, right? And then they would have to just continue to fall until they eventually met their bottom, or, inevitable bankruptcy or whatever was going to happen. So since the Federal Reserve wasn't going to let that sort of deterioration happen, they needed to figure out a way to get the money out there to all these different corners of the financial market. They needed to get it out there for the small businesses. They needed to get it out there for the corporations. They needed to get it out there for anything Anybody who wanted to borrow money, they had a facility to provide that loan, or at least to buy it, right? So they have to buy it from the open market, right? So what they were doing by setting up these special purpose vehicles is that they were pretty much putting the backstop back there, right? Saying that they can't go, like, we are willing to buy the debt, right? So when these corporations, for example, needed funding and they were setting up the corporate debt lending facility to go and buy that corporate debt, that right there, that facility, that buying of corporate debt is a complete illegal thing for the Federal Reserve. It's against their charter. They cannot do that. It's like going directly to the Treasury to buy, debt from the Treasury. They can't do it. However, in unusual and exigent circumstances and with permission from the Treasury, the two of them will fund the special purpose vehicle for a limited time to backstop the corporate debt. So without the pandemic in place, there was no way that they were going to be able to set up the special purpose vehicle. Like, there was nothing, like, if there was no unusual and exigent circumstances. And now whether or not they define maybe a war as an unusual and exigent circumstance, I think that would probably count. Whether they just kind of figure out what the unusual and exigent circumstance is that they use for an excuse, they needed that. They needed that unusual and exigent circumstance. So once they had that, now they have funding that they can get to the corporations, providing these guys with the households and businesses with money and lending. That was the whole point of it. Otherwise, people just borrowing the money at that low interest rate wasn't going to be enough to do it. Like, it wasn't going to stimulate the economy, and the deterioration and deflation would have continued. I don't know. Did I get all that right? I work in the Fed court, had to trash mask, then China mask come in. I refused and got fired. Hell, the whole thing is walking on a half-inch of ice. I don't see why they needed an excuse. Yeah, well, it's because they can't set those things up. Like, they would have to just sit there and literally watch the corporations fail. But it wouldn't have worked like what's funny about it is that special purpose vehicle was nothing more than the credible threat. Like, they promised to buy that corporate debt, but they didn't do it. They bought a little bit of it, established the idea that they were going to do it, and then essentially the market came in and tried to front run the Fed. Like, as interest rates were falling, they were chasing yield. They found it in that corporate debt, and it gave them a lot of confidence that they would have a place to dump this corporate debt, considering the Federal Reserve says, hey, we got a special purpose vehicle set up just to do that, and then people were like, woohoo, let's grab on all this stuff and load up on it, and they did. And these funding, like, the corporations got totally funded straight up by the market. During the Fed didn't do any of it. Like, they didn't bail out these corporations. The people did it. The market did it. And that's what's funny about the whole thing, I mean, it's just like, that really happened, Question: how does consumer sentiment affect the economy? Well, Dylan, that's kind of actually a pretty broad question. I mean, just think about it from your own personal view. Like, think about the economy as yourself, and not like the economy is out there, because the economy is you. It's your decisions. It's the things that you make. Like, what I do with my life and what you do with your life are going to be two totally different things, right? Like, are you looking to invest and save and buy a house and do all this other stuff? Are you raising a family? Are you or who knows, right? I mean, everybody's idea of what it is that they need for their life is going to be different from me and my neighbor, right? It's like every single person is going to be different. So understanding the economy as a personal thing, right? How do I interact with the economy? Not what the economy is, because the economy is each and every single individual person. And unless you know every single person personally, which would be a pretty hard thing to do considering how many people are on the planet, then there's no way you can figure out what it is that everybody is going to be doing with their lives at any given moment. So you have to just kind of take it in for yourself, right? What is it that you plan on doing? What is it that you are going to do with your life? Are you cutting back on your expenses? Imagine that probably a bunch of other people are doing that too, right? If you can imagine that you're probably going to save for a new car that might be coming, well, you can imagine some other people are going to be doing that too. Right? So you start imagining what it is that you have within yourself that you interact with the economy with, and then you can look out there and see how other people are interacting with the economy. Okay? Because everybody is doing it individually. I sit there in the restaurant and I look and I see how many people have kids sitting there in the booths. I look to see what kind of meals they're ordering, see how many people, like see if it's young couples, if it's old couples. I stand out on the street and I look to see how many cars I drive by with paper plates because they just picked them up from the dealership. I examine everything. To me is an economic input, right? Just like the flamingo girl that we were talking about from Dion's channel. That girl had a lot of economic information within her that she didn't even know she had. Like, all it would take is just somebody with a little bit of curiosity and the right line of questionings, and you would be able to extract a lot of economic information out of her on the way that people are behaving in Las Vegas, right? And the changes that have taken place from there. I don't know. Am I making sense at all? Let's go check out that super chat. Thanks for the questions, Dylan. All right, Mike. Thank you very much for the $5. I'm not sure what that is. It's an A there. And what would have been wrong with deflation? Stupidity, indebted borrowers going under. Why was deflation found to be offensive? Now, again, I think this is right back. Oh, it's Mile. I'm sorry, Mile. Thank you very much for the super chat and the donation. Everything that I get from the donations from this channel and the ad revenue is going to go to help my buddy Frank out. Now, the deflationary scenario, why is that offensive? Why is that bad? It's not. It depends on you. Like, if Dylan and I are savers, right, then a deflationary scenario is awesome for us. Like, our economy is killing it when it's a deflationary scenario, because that's the condition that we have put ourselves in. But if you are heavily indebted and you are dependent on an expanding economy where people are borrowing money and spending that with you because you're selling new cars or you're a mortgage lender or something of that nature, well, then a deflationary scenario is very bad. It sucks for you. So now, while it's awesome for Dylan and I, we're killing it because we're savers, right? It sucks for the guy out there who's working sales, trying to figure out how he's going to get commissions in order to continue making his house payment, right? So his economy sucks in a deflationary scenario. Dylan in my economy is killing it, right? We're doing awesome. So this is the difference that you have to understand. Deflation is not a bad thing. Inflation's not a bad thing. I mean, too much inflation is a bad thing, and too much deflation would be a bad thing in a lot of ways, depending on, again, the position that you have put yourself in. But ultimately, it's not a good or bad thing. It's not a good or bad economy. It's not anything like that. It's just the interactions and the way that you have dealt with it, the way that you have positioned yourself. I mean, yeah, it could be a bad economy for the car salesman who's trying to figure out how to make a commission sale, and it could be a great economy for the person who's a saver who's been sitting on a bunch of cash waiting for everybody to sell their toys off really cheap. How do you want to look at it? It's the meaning that you give it. And that's really important to understand. Like, there's nothing like that. Politician can't change he might change the way that the meaning that you give it if there's a politician out there, but there's nobody out there. There's no magic man, there's no person, there's no anybody out there who could ever possibly come and make the conditions right for all of us, right? They'll make it right for some people. They might make a few people a little bit joyful, piss off a lot of other people, but there's no way that anybody is going to go up there and save our ass. Period. Nobody. Literally nobody, right? It's just you. You are it. And there's nobody out there who's even a close personal friend, business, family, whatever, who's even going to be there for you, right? You must take that into consideration. It is all upon you. It's just you, right? And it's your interactions with the economy out there. You are the economy. All right. $5 from what does that say? Concurring Lion? Great name. I like it. It's like Rasta thing going on there. Okay, thank you for talking, Silver. I was horrible saver, much better now. Well, thank you very much for the $5 super sticker there, super chat. And yeah, Silver is by far the best place in the world, in my opinion, to start a savings. Like, you can start a savings account in a bank, but generally you're probably just going to end up spending it just like when you run out of money. But if you have Silver sitting in a box down in the basement somewhere where you just don't even really think about it, you just throw a couple pieces in there every once in a while, you would be amazed on how fast and how much of a savings that you can actually get. And then the ability to sleep at night, knowing that, at some point you have an entire month's worth of bills in silver that you could go down and cash and you could totally cover every bill that you have, right? That is an amazing feeling. You talk about the ability to sleep at night. A lot of people don't realize how stressful it is to live when you have nothing. Like it's difficult. Like you don't even realize the mental deterioration that begins to take place within your life when you are like living in a constant broke, wondering how you're going to pay the bills, stressing about like the debt, whatever it is that you have going on out there. It literally deteriorates your brain. Like, I mean, from what I understand, if you sit in a depressive state long enough, it'll shrink your nugget, right? So it's such a hard place for a lot of people to be, right? And I know because I lived that way for a very long time, right? Once you get out of that, it's a different way. You don't even think like as bad like the bad things anymore. And sometimes it's literally just having like here's an example. I had nothing for a really long time and I was really really broke, like really bad. And I don't know, like every month it was just so difficult to try and pay the bills and try to try to pay off some debt and try to deal with the collection agency and trying to deal, it's just on and on. And I remember one time my mom gave me $300. She gave me three $100 bills. And I took that three $100 bills and I stuck it in a safe place, right? And I remember like the feeling of, and you got to think, guys, I was like probably 40, 41 at this point. Like I don't think I had started the channel yet, right? But it was just before I started the channel. And I remember like the feeling of like oh god, like I'm cool, like I gotta, okay, I'm cool right now. Like I got like it's like all of a sudden the level of stress had dropped dramatically. Like I was just like, okay, I got that $300 and it's in this safe place. If anything comes up, I mean, I got this $300, right? Like literally I'm thinking, man, all it would take is just a freaking flat tire or whatever, and I don't know what I was gonna do. Like I had nothing. And I remember that feeling of having that $300 in that envelope and how stress relieving it was just to have that little tiny bit. And to me at the time it seemed like so much. It was so much. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is everything, right? And that's like literally the way you end up thinking. So yeah, having a savings account or having like is one thing, but having that box of silver, that was like that did it for me. Like that was, because I always had that, and I never really considered it part of like anything that I would ever sell because I kind of considered it my kids, and it was coming down to the point that I would have to have sold it, and I guess I could have, right? But having that $300 just made all the difference in the world. And that's really where I think like a lot of people just end up living a lot of life is just in that constant state of stress. Yeah. So why didn't I have that? Oh, that's right. That's what it was. I had traded the damn silver for Suburban right then. That's what it was, because I had gotten rid of a ton of it. That's what it was. I was trying to figure out why I was so like, I was like, I had that silver, but I didn't have that much at that time. After YouTube started up, I started collecting the silver back and I got a bunch more of it back. That's what it was. I had bought that damn Suburban and I traded off a bunch more of it. And it wasn't the Tahoe. The Tahoe I traded a bunch of silver for, tried buying some back, and then I bought a Suburban with more silver. And that's the reason why I was feeling that way. All right. Okay, question. If the Fed's opinion is that they need to drop the federal funds rate down to roughly 5% below I don't know if it's necessarily the neutral interest rate, 5% below the neutral interest rate. Why do they target only 2% inflation? I don't think it's necessarily 5% below the neutral interest rate. I think they just have to get it significantly below the interest rate, or below the neutral interest rate, which might not even have to be 5%. It may only need to be 1 or 2.5% or something like that. So it may not necessarily be a 5% below the neutral interest rate as far as where they need to go to be restrictive or accommodating. Right? I think that 5% was the room that they could use to then, adjust the monetary policy to be somewhere around that neutral interest rate. And so the closer they got like, I guess the farther they drop below it, the more accommodating, the farther above it they got, more restrictive. But it was when that neutral interest rate hit zero, trying to get below it was the difficult problem. Like, they had to either go negative interest rates, which there is no proof that it was actually, a real way of being able to run an economy, although Japan did it for a long time. The Federal Reserve is a much different position, being as the world reserve currency. So, I think that going into negative interest rates was the last thing that they would want to do, considering how many people would just start hoarding as much cash as possible. Whoa, did I just get $100 super chat? Oh my gosh. Wow. All right, Bravo Zulu, man. Thank you so much for the $100, man. That is so rad of you. Okay, well, yeah, keep contributing, because I'm gonna match it. I'm gonna match that $100 and the other 28.25 that's in here, plus all the ad revenue that's coming in with it. So, thank you very much for the donation, and I man, very touching of you, bro. Thank you so much, man. All right. And don't forget, there is a GoFundMe link down in the description. I think she even has like a Venmo link to it too as well. So, like, however you want to do it. It would be great, man. Okay. Why do you think Japan can't get inflation? They're a nation of savers. I think it has more to do with their demographics. I think it has more to do with the way that people spend money when you get older as opposed to younger. Like, younger people like to blow their money, and older people like to save their money and not spend it. And I think that spending habits, those buying and saving habits that come from that, it just makes it very difficult for them to spark any kind of real consuming over there, even though, like, you would kind of think that's what everybody would want to do, but I think that probably has a lot to do with it. Is just the sheer demographics of it. And then also, like, Japan isn't necessarily like the same as like the United States is, in that we are like, we have to be consumers. Like, that the United States doesn't produce anything but a consumer. Like, they produce a consumer. That's what we are. Like, we're a consuming nation. If we did not consume the products of the world would not buy our debt, and we wouldn't be able to function the way we do. So we have to be like literally like this big fat pig on an island that they shove stuff into so that it would poop money out the other end. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but it's kind of like that. All right. Stay curious. His buddy got hurt, and Simon is accepting and matching donations for him and his family. Thank you very much, All Nighter, for answering the question, bro. All right. Thank you, Bravo. Okay, let me cruise back up here and find some questions. All right, Post, you can answer any question I have. Love hearing others' opinions. Thanks. This goes for anyone. Want all responses. Just trying to learn here. Man, Dylan, you know what, Dylan, I love your curiosity, bro. Like, this is what I really enjoy about this channel, is finding somebody like Dylan who's this curious about this, who's really trying to figure it out for himself, and just like diving into it like head first. And I'm like, dude, I'm like proud of you, man. You're gonna do well, man. You just keep pursuing the questions. You just keep looking for the answers out there, and you just keep reading and listen to everybody. Listen to everybody. I don't care what they are talking about, even if you agree or disagree with their opinions. Listen to everybody, because you'll never know when you're gonna pick up a little nugget of information that you didn't think of before, or that somebody might say something that finally just gives you that aha moment or whatever. I remember how many times, I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, especially when I was listening to somebody I didn't agree with, that they would say something that I thought, wow, that was something I'd never thought of. I still don't agree with them, but I didn't think about it that way. So, and I know a lot of people tell me that, like, they say, man, I really enjoy your channel because of the perspective that you have, although I don't agree with a lot of it. It really either confirms or gives me a different idea about my beliefs, right? And so a lot of people who watch this channel literally don't agree with me, and I'm cool with that. You know, it's just like, you know, this is my opinions, these are my research, this is everything I've done, and I've left links in the description of just about every single video for everybody to form their own opinion with. So you're doing it, buddy. Uh, Hey, thank you, Steven, man. $5. Hope Frank gets better soon. Yeah, I think everything is going to be all right. I mean, they're going to, you know, he's up there in good hands, and they're going to get him, you know, fixed up and get him back home, you know, and I'm sure, you know, things will be just fine in the end. But, you know, his family could really use the support right now. And, you know, she's driving up to Portland. It's just him and his son. His son is the same age as my boy. We all went Halloween trick-or-treating, you know, this last year. And so, you know, it's a, you know, it's, what can I say, man? I mean, I'm asking for help on it, you know. All right, Yui is right about consumerism. Most of what produced in factories is consumables in housing goods. Yeah, you know, and that's like, you can just see it. It's like we're not a. I mean, think about the beers and saws analogy, right? I mean, there's two places that you can invest into. You can either invest in beers or you can invest in saws. Like literally saws for cutting wood. A lot of people didn't understand what I was trying to say. But like a saw, like a, you know, you cut wood with a saw. You use it to, you know, cut up something, fashion it together with something that's sellable, and that's like a productive way of investing your money. But the United States doesn't do that. We buy beer, right? So what's beer? I mean, beer has a lot going on with it. It's agricultural, it's, you know, transportation, it's entertainment, it's, you know, all the stuff, right? But once it's consumed, it's gone. There's nothing that can happen from it after that, except that you are now trying to work with the hangover to pay it off, right? And this is exactly why it feels so painful when there is a downturn in the economy, because that's a good way of looking at it, is that the economy is hungover and that it's trying to work to pay off that partying that it's done. Hey, thank you so much, uh, Derek J925 for the 1999, man. Thank you so much for the donation to Frank's family. Godspeed to your friend Frank. Thank you. I really appreciate the 1999, and like I said, I'll be matching that, and whatever ad revenue I get from this video will be matched as well, and I'm going to donate all that to Frank. You can also donate down in the description. I left a GoFundMe. Love to see, you know, that GoFundMe just continue to increase. They've totally met their goal, but you know, she can use as much help as she can get, going up to Portland, staying at hotels, buying meals, and trying to go to work all at the same time. It's going to be very difficult on them. So I think my son's generation is going to have a much lower standard of consumption by the time he's 30. He's only 3 right now. Yeah, it's going to be way different, but then you also have to think, like, we're not going to be living in the same style of like, you know, feeling like, you know how hard it is. Like, okay, guys, you know, I was broke and I didn't have anything, and I got this house. Like, I don't have like much for furniture, right? It's hard to like fill it up. You got, like, you know, you got all kinds of things for a new house. Most people, like, when they have, like, they're 47 years old and they're living in a house, they've had a lifetime worth of accumulating of stuff. We don't. Like, we have our clothes, we have some dressers, we have our beds, we have a little bit of chairs and stuff, but that's it. Like, we don't have a whole lot of stuff. And it's, you know, like, it's, you know, trying to have a house, you know, where you have stuff, you know, it's just like, takes a lot to, you know, and you know, you don't even think about, like, so many things, like, you know, like a dining table and, you know, chairs and dishes, and it's just like, it goes on and on, you know. Anyway. Okay. I have bigger goals of helping the world with a 401k, just won't get me in time. Thanks for the advice, though. I am being cautious. I mean, Dylan, shit, that's the way you need to be. Investing at a young age is making time work for you. Absolutely. Okay. Are you guys talking there? Dylan, if he is talking about getting something into like a compounding interest, if you are young, youth is probably your greatest gift that you could ever possibly have. Like, don't waste this. Don't wait. Okay. If like, I don't know how else to put this, but like, you can screw up really bad so long as you have something that has a compounding interest to it and you are contributing to it, and it doesn't even need to be that much. You can screw up really bad in life. As long as you do that one thing, then at the end of it, you'll probably be just fine. Right. And the only person who really has that benefiting to them is somebody who is young. Like, I can't, like, compounding interest isn't really going to work for me. I got to figure out what it is that I'm going to find that's going to jump in value, right? Whether it's like acquiring rental properties, whether it's, working damn hard to try and acquire as much dividend paying stocks as to try and find a business that I can do, trying to promote myself more on this channel to, sell courses or something of that nature. I have to like work really hard to figure that out. If you are young and you find anything that has some sort of compounding interest to it, and I mean, do the research on that, like, figure it out, be confident in what you're doing, and just do it, right? And if you do even just a little bit for a long time, you don't like all the rest. You can just really just do whatever the hell you want with your life. You don't even have to stress any of this stuff out. Just show up every day for work, contribute to that thing, and call it good, right? And then consider like the study of economics as a hobby, right? And not a life mission like I have trying to do to try and figure out what it is that I need to do with my life here. That's my advice. All right. All right, let's cruise up here. Yes, started my real estate journey with the help of Lumberjack Mike and multifamily strategy. Right on. I'm 55 and have no investments. What should I invest in? The S&P. Wow, at 55? I don't know, man. I mean, what is it that you have going on in your life and stuff? You're going to really have to figure that one out for yourself. I mean, I can't tell you where to put your money. Like, I wouldn't know. Like, I mean, I don't know. I can tell you what I did with my money. You want to know what I did? Is last year I dollar cost averaged into Coinbase. I put $900 in, buying all along the bottom, right? Had no idea how much it was going to go up or down or whatever. That now is up 250%. It's, I don't know. It's like I got $2,200 up on that beyond the $900. Like if I sold it now, I'd make $2,200 in a year. That was killer. Like, I absolutely nailed that. I didn't even know how I did that. I was just like, hey, I use Coinbase. I'll buy into that. So I bought a bunch of Coinbase and just did great on it. I buy the Vanguard ETF, total stock market ETF. Yeah, I dollar cost average into that a couple of years ago. Yeah, probably more like about 2 years ago. Oh man, it's probably even 3 now because it was kind of before I bought the house. So I was buying in way back then. I dollar cost average $50 a month. It's up like maybe $300 or so. And I forget, I think I invested probably like $1,500 into it or so. The Russell 1000 growth stock, Vanguard ETF, same thing. I got a couple $100. I invested at $50 a week for all of, 3 years ago, along with the other total stock market ETF. Like, they're both up, but not very much. I bought Altria, bought a lot of Altria, like way too much of it, $2,200 worth of it or so. And it just turned positive just recently. And I've been dollar cost averaging into that the entire time. Like, I even bought some just a couple of weeks ago. So even though it was the worst performing part of the portfolio, it has a really good dividend payment to it. So like, every 3 months I get 50, $60 or something coming from that. And that's been the case for quite a while now. So that's pretty cool to have a dividend paying stock, even though the value of it was underwater essentially, under how much I had paid for quite a while, like probably a year. It's now positive and the dividend payments are awesome. So I really enjoy having that one. Then I also just recently got into ExxonMobil. And it's done pretty well since I purchased it. I've only done like $100 into it. I just barely gotten started. So that's the little bit I have there. Most of my portfolio, if you were to consider that, is in cryptocurrencies. And that was quite by accident. I didn't try to have as much cryptocurrencies as I have. I've just been buying it for so damn long now that like it just keeps going, and though at times when there is a huge hit to the price and it falls dramatically, that doesn't really hurt my feelings that much because I've been buying in for so long now that it would have to pretty much go to zero for me to feel any kind of real pain from it because I don't even know how much money I put into it. But it definitely, like, I mean, I have just shy of a half a Bitcoin, and I have a bunch of, like, altcoins and all kinds of stuff out there. So that's the position that I've taken. And then, of course, silver, I've loaded up on, silver throughout most of my, you know, 30s and 40s. I've been buying little pieces of silver. So, I have, silver allocation. Bitcoin is the biggest allocation. And then, the house. And then buying real estate. So I got the house as well. And surprisingly, way surprising, like I was not even expecting the house value to go up as much as it did. Like I thought when I bought the house that it was going to be the end of the world for me and that I was going to end up underwater. And you should see the comments that I was getting when I was talking about buying the house too. So many people are like, dude, don't do it. You're going to totally lose your ass. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose everything. And you're going to be right back in the poorhouse again. And I heard so many people giving me shit. And it was just like on and on and on. And it was all on YouTube. Everybody I knew personally was like, oh, go for it, right? So I bought the house and it did do nothing but go up the entire time. Like the entire time. There was at one point, it would go up in a month more than I could make at my day job, my wife's day job, and YouTube combined. Like the house would go up more than that. It was like I thought, what in the world is happening here? And then it ran up so high that I was just like, okay, this is like obviously there's something gone wrong, right? And then the price started to fall. So it, like, I couldn't even tell you. It probably went up like in EOS. Like, I mean, I know Zillow is a very odd thing to kind of use as far as like any kind of real estimate of your house value. But considering what the other houses were selling for around the property or around where I live, I was thinking, man, this is not too far off. People are really dumb when they're purchasing these homes around here. Like I thought I was an idiot, Jesus. Then some of the deals that were happening after I bought my house were even crazier. And so when the price started to come down, I'm like, okay, here we go. Now we're coming down back to reality, like back to where I purchased it. And that's where I thought the price was actually going to end up going, was that it would end up following all the way back down to where I at least had purchased it. Because I bought it just before interest rates went up. Like I got it, I think I was 3.125%, right? 3.125 on my mortgage. And so right after that, interest rates just started skyrocketing. So I thought, okay, yeah, for sure. The house price is going to come back down to where I paid for it. Nope, it hasn't. It's still far above where I paid for it, right? Far above it. And now considering how much money I put in to, as far as a down payment, like I am so far from underwater on my house. Like I'm not even remotely concerned about it. Even if it was to lose, probably even lose 15% right now off the price, I still would not be underwater on the house, right? I mean, they made me put 10% down anyway, right? So that's the position that I am in. Like I was fearful the entire time. Like I was fearful of buying Bitcoin. I was fearful of buying really fearful of buying real estate. I was fearful of buying silver in the beginning. All of this stuff I was always concerned and scared to do, like every single time. Then once you buy it and you hold it and you own it, and then you don't think about it anymore. And then pretty soon, throwing, $50 or $100 at some of these things doesn't feel like you're doing it. It just feels like you're just adding to what it is that you have going on in your life. And that's it. All right. You guys having fun? We're out here trying to raise some money for my buddy Frank, who's sitting in the hospital right now. Thank you very much, Bullish Paul McCarthy, for the $1. I will match that $1 and be sending it to his family. Frank is suffering from acute pancreatitis right now. He's up at the Portland hospitals up there getting himself taken care of. There's a link down in the description. You can donate, or you can send super chats to me. I'm going to match everything within the super chat and send it to him. Or just simply just liking and commenting the video. That's going to be enough to send the video around and so more people can pick it up. All right. Let's see here. Dylan, that was his buddy Charlie Munger. Okay, question. How does overdevelop and underdevelop affect the real estate market? Well, I think that's a pretty good question for, I mean, I guess just like in anywhere, like in my opinion, this particular area is underdeveloped, but are you thinking like they should be bringing more houses to like, okay, so we had this area called Warrenton, right? Well, it's not called, it is called Warrenton, right? And Warrenton had like a moratorium on building. Like they were like, we can't, like the systems, the water systems, all that can't handle a big influx of homes being built here, right? So we have to change like the infrastructure here in order to accommodate all these homes like that you want to build. So like a lot of times like places that are underdeveloped where they should be building homes simply can't, right? You got to change the way that the logistics of the area, or else people are just not going to be able to, it just wouldn't function properly. So in that sense, like, it's difficult to just like say, let's just go out here and just build a bunch of houses, right? Well, you got to be able to bring like sewer and water and electricity and all this other stuff to this particular area to make it happen. So I can imagine like places that were be underdeveloped, or places that are going to be developed into the future once the conditions are accommodating to that, right? Is that kind of like the way it's going? I don't know. Is that what you're thinking? Oops. I just searched it up and says Warren Buffett says he focuses on a few high quality investments but understands diversification is safety. Yeah, and so this is the one thing that I found when I listen to a lot of investors out there is that yeah, you can have stability or safety by diversifying into many places, but you make it really rich by investing in one thing. And so I don't know, like what that one thing is. Is it Bitcoin? Is it gold? Is it, whatever? I don't know. But if there was only one thing that I can invest in, I'm going to try and invest in myself. Like, in more words, but general idea, he advocates studying what you invest. Yeah, and that's, one of the reasons why I actually picked Altria is because it's kind of like, a sin stock, right? And I think they're into that weight loss drug too now that I was reading up on them. To be honest, like I kind of did a little bit of research on them back, a while ago, and didn't really like know what I was buying into. I just chose it and just said, okay, we'll just go for it or whatever. Um, so I know that they're into a lot of different things, but mainly I picked it because I knew a lot about addiction, and it was Marlboro cigarettes and Anheuser-Busch, and that's really what my reasoning behind it was. All right, go to the Love Debt Clock, click on the upper right box and take a look. Very upper right. Live. Go to the live debt clock, I say. All right. If we didn't have food stamps, we would already be in a depression. Yeah, and I can kind of see that. Like, I think ultimately that I think UBI is going to become a very prevalent thing within the economy. I think that's probably going to continue on for quite some time. Are we getting screwed up here? Where did all the comments go? There they are. Are you guys still here? my screen, like things are flashing across it. Like all of a sudden, all the text disappears and everything. So I don't even know if you guys are still here or not. But I think like coming into the future is going to be more of a UBI thing. Alrighty, guys. Well, we're an hour and 18 minutes into this. I think we should probably call it quits here at some point. I know that I'm getting a little tired. My eyes are starting to burn here a little bit from staring at the screen. But I really appreciate everybody being here. I really appreciate all those super chats and donations. We have $154.24 that we've got in in super chats. I'm going to match every one of that, every penny of that, and I'm going to send it over to Frank's family, not to mention all the ad revenue that comes in on this video. I'm going to match that as well. So, you know, hopefully it'll be enough to carry them along for a little while Frank goes through the healing process. And, you know, Jessica, well, I wasn't going to use her name, but, you know, his wife tries to use or uses the funds to try and help out with the family, going up and visiting him, and, you know, dealing with bills and stuff like that. She's still trying to go to work and do all that other stuff, so it's very difficult. And I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for being here. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.